Yeah.
I heard on the news last year or early this year. I heard on the news that Enugu State's IGR surpasses that of Anambra State. I'm like, what? How is that possible? Now, when it comes to industries, there's just no way you can compare Enugu to Anambra. Enugu has practically no industries. Practically no industries. Anambra has much more, many more industries. Innocent is there. The whole lot of major industries, spare part manufacturing industries, food and beverage industries that are functional in Anambra State. And Enugu State surpasses Anambra in Nigeria. How is that possible? So I began to look into this, and I found that the only way that is possible is that Enugu State has a policy of extortion. And that means that they are placing a burden on the citizens of Enugu, and that's how they're generating that money. For example, you have these boys littered the street. I keep forgetting what you call them, the ones that wear khaki color. You have the MOT, and then you have the ones that wear the khaki. Now, my problem is that it is good to ensure that there is order, on the road, traffic order on the road, right? And usually you should have people to enforce that, right? But how do you tell me that it is okay that you bring some touts together, give them bikes, and they don't even have vehicles. They rent these small buses, and they chase people around this town. Now, these same boys do not obey traffic rules and laws. They do not obey the traffic lights. They do not obey any form of traffic rule. They drive against traffic in the name of manning traffic. Get that right.
Yeah.
So what they do is chase people and extort people unnecessarily, and they generate a lot of money. If you go to the Ministry of Transport at Independence Law, you'll see the kind of traffic that goes into that compound and out. People whose cars have been impounded, right? Going in there to pay money. Now, the problem is a lot of times the things they accuse you of aren't the things that you've done wrong, right? So they stop you and they say that you have driven against traffic. Tell me, there's a particular case I witnessed. How do you accuse somebody of driving against traffic, right? When the road is not a dual carriage road. It's a one carriage road, and somebody overtakes another car, and then you stop, you drive it, onto the vehicle's frontal area of the vehicle, and then impounds the vehicle and takes him to wherever. Now, a lot of times you find out that the traffic lights aren't working properly. The thoroughfare, the one that goes to the right, the green light, sometimes it doesn't work, and so people assume that when it's not working, then it's free traffic, I can move on. And then you see them chasing after you, and then all of a sudden they block you in the middle of the road. What I'm trying to say in essence is that these activities have proliferated in Enugu, and they are extorting people, either from their own private pocket, because what they do is when they stop you, they tell you, hey, this is what you've done. They take their phone and snap your vehicle in the middle of the road, and then tell you, it's either you settle us here, or we take you to the office. So if you're that kind of person that decides, I haven't done anything wrong, I'd rather go to the office, you go to the office, and once your car gets to the office, they leak your tires. You're not living there until you have paid. Now, so these activities have been so proliferated in Enugu that the state is generating a lot of funds through these kinds of extortion. That is one. MOT has their own activities as well, right? And so they stop you and they demand certain things, and if you're not able to, they impound your vehicle or they take you to the office. And every time your vehicle gets to the Ministry of Transport, 99.9% of the time you're going to pay money, and it ranges from 10,000 to 25,000 what you pay. You wanted to say something?
I was going to say, of course, when you default, there is a fine for every
if you default. If you default. But my experience is that a lot of times people don't default. I think it looks like they have been given targets, and so they're actually trying to force it on people, try to say that you have committed a crime. If you actually open up the phone lines, exactly. If you open up the phone lines now, you'll see the testimonies you'll get will be that these people are actually accusing people falsely and ensuring that you pay money even when you're not wrong. I've seen many cases like that. So that's one way the state generates money. The other way the state generates money is through the Okada people.
Okada?
Yes. Enugu State makes a lot of money on the back of struggling Okada riders. Right?
In the rural areas?
No, even in the city. You're made to pay a certain amount of money every day.
Okay,
you see people.
The keke.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, not Okada. Keke tricycle rider. Sorry about that. So you're made to pay a certain amount of money every day. Every day they give them these tickets. I can't remember how much. If you put that money together, based on the number of tricycle riders we have in Enugu, which I'm sure is not less than 40,000. Now multiply that to 6 times a week, right? 6 times a week, 4 or 5 weeks a month, and then 12 months a year. See how much money they're making on the back of Okada riders, tricycle riders. My problem is you are extorting all of this money in the name of IGR. But you're not giving back to these people. You're not making sure the roads are good so that they can have a smooth commute, right? If I'm paying you or my community, of logistic business people, are paying all that money to the state, you should expect that every road in this state should be functional, should be working. There shouldn't be potholes, because after you extort all that money, some of them have taken these vehicles on hire purchase, right? And so they are struggling to make their daily pay. They're struggling to pay their families, and they're also bothered by this, extortions every day. Now, at the end of the day, the roads are not functional. And so it breaks down their vehicles, and they still have to worry about fixing these vehicles. Now, the essence of internally generated revenue on the part of government, or tax, the only justification for tax is that you, the government, provide infrastructure for people who pay you tax to live a good life. That's the only justification. Because, for example, in Nigeria, government does not provide funding for businesses. The banks don't give you funding. So whatever you do as business, you must have raised the funds for yourself. Now, how is it fair that I struggle to raise funds for my business, whether it's a tricycle business or a shop, right? And at the end of the day, government comes to demand that I pay a certain amount of money, and yet you have not done anything to deserve that money. And now, after I have paid that money in the billions, after the business community, no matter what they do in the States, have paid all that money, at the end of the day, where does the money go? We don't see that money in infrastructure. We don't see that money in good roads. We don't see that money in running water. We don't see that money in electricity. We don't see that money in healthcare. We don't see that money benefiting the citizens of the state through which these funds have been raised. We don't see that. And so it is not fair in any way. The other way they raise this money is through the shop owners, what Nigerians call, Enugu people like to call multiple taxation. I have never called it multiple taxation. It is not multiple taxation. It is criminal extortion. Now, if you want to institute tax, there is tax for every cadre of society. If you're working class, there is tax that you pay, and there's a percentage to that. If you're SME, there's a tax, that percentage that you give to the government, right? Now, going around through SWAMA to ensure that people pay certain amounts of money for waste bins and trashing, whatever. They pay that, it's not enough. Local government has to come after them. The billboard guys will have to come after them. Different extortions, and people call it multiple taxation. It is not multiple taxation. It is criminal extortion. And so all these avenues are avenues created by government to generate money through the citizens. And they're doing a good job at that. The only problem is that they are putting too much pressure. To answer your question, Adobe, they are putting too much pressure on the citizens of the state. The market women who sell every day are also extorted. They're not left out. The ones that have stalls have a certain amount they pay to the market union every day, and that goes to the local government. And who sends the local government? It's the state government that controls all of this. Just one final one. And then you have those ones who don't have stalls, who come and take little spaces where they sell their stuff. They are made to pay a certain amount of money every day. And these are struggling citizens who government has provided no infrastructure to ensure they have a good life. And you end up extorting them like that. That's the only way Enugu State government is generating all that money, not through industries, right? If you proliferate, if you scale industries, ensure that industries are set up all over the place, catering to different kinds of products. That would be a good way for government to raise money through taxes on these companies and the people they employ, because you have company taxes, right? And then you have employment taxes. And so if you set up the state in such a way that it is favorable to industries to come and set up, what you will find is the scaling up of industries. More industries will be set up. These industries will not only pay salaries and ensure that there's liquidity in the state. They pay taxes to the government, and the people they pay salaries also pay from their salaries taxes to the government. That's a very credible way, to increase your IGR.